Formula One is not just 20 cars racing down the lap to declare a winner. It's a lot more complex than that, and the behind the scenes are just as fascinating as the actual race itself. From firing race directors to rivalry between drivers, read Hamilton and Verstappen, we've seen it all. The latest we have on one of these fiascos is Honda missing the opportunity to sign the legendary Sebastian Vettel. Let's dive in. First up, let's take a look at where Honda went wrong. According to Otmar Szafnauer, Alpine's F1 team principal and former Honda F1 director of strategy and business planning, there was a 2-week window in his junior career when Sebastian was available to sign. He was climbing the ladder of stardom with sure steps. Szafnauer always had a good relationship with Sebastian, and he was instrumental in the German driver signing with Aston Martin last year after talks ran into 2020. Vettel sadly announced his retirement from Formula One at the end of the season at the end of last month. When asked for his best story about Sebastian in Hungary, Szafnauer revealed that he had hoped to sign the then Red Bull and BMW-linked youngster for Honda, only for sporting director Farron to drag his feet. He narrated how Zeb had come up to him and told him that he had a 2-week window. Szafnauer further added that the driver was young and just about 19 years old. "I've got a 2-week window where I'm out of contract at both Red Bull and I think BMW. So, are you interested in signing me?" We don't know for sure what went down. Perhaps there was a simple delay of the due process, but what we do know is that they had an eye on Sebastian and knew they had 2 weeks. But it didn't matter in the end. Anyway, we didn't sign him, finished Szafnauer. Yikes. Talk about missed opportunity. Next up, let's look at the silver lining of this small misfortune. Sebastian would go on to make his Formula One debut for BMW Sauber at the 2007 United States Grand Prix, filling in for the injured Robert Kubica before joining Red Bull's junior team Toro Rosso later that year. It paved the way for Vettel to become F1's youngest race winner in 2008 for Toro Rosso, before winning his first world title with Red Bull in 2010. Szafnauer would leave Honda in the middle of 2008, the Japanese manufacturer's final season with a works team. It ceased operations at the end of the year, allowing Braun GP to pick up the pieces and win both titles in 2009 before eventually becoming Mercedes' works team in 2010. Szafnauer and Sebastian discussed a switch to what was then known as Racing Point until 2020, including a famous lift in a car to a petrol station at the British Grand Prix. Also, what is this we hear about mouth-watering homemade bread? Here's the crux. Szafnauer revealed that whenever Sebastian came to stay with him in the UK, he brought homemade bread, speaking to the 4-time world champion's character. It's no wonder Sebastian has won our hearts over and over again. Szafnauer revealed that during COVID, he felt more comfortable not going to a hotel, where he thought he could easily pick up the virus. Instead, he preferred to then spend time at his house whenever he came to England, simply because everybody tested every day, so everyone knew they were COVID-free. And whenever Vettel came over, he would bring with him homemade bread that he had made in Switzerland in this little satchel that he had. Szafnauer recalled the first time he saw the kids all staring at him, but unsurprisingly, they absolutely loved Seb's homemade bread. Every time he came, he had to bring his homemade bread. Brilliant. I mean, who else does that? Coming up, here's what we have on Sebastian Vettel's retirement. One fateful occurrence this August was a sad day for the fans of Formula One racing. They woke up to find one of their favorite drivers had finally made an Instagram account, but only to announce his retirement in a short video. Sebastian Vettel plans to retire from Formula One at the end of the 2022 season. The 4-time world champion stated that the main reason for his retirement is to spend more time with his family. Throughout the video, he maintained eye contact with the camera and touched on various topics, from becoming a better person to finding joy and the environment. Vettel received numerous farewells and well wishes from his F1 colleagues and the FIA, but it looked like F1 will be reluctant to bid him farewell, not only because he's an iconic driver, but also because of the fines he owes them. That's right. Now, let's take a look at Sebastian Vettel and his fines. At the halfway point of the season, the German motorsports racing driver has $37,150 in fines. He has the most issues that need to be addressed before any driver retires. Vettel received a $5,172 fine for riding a scooter onto the Albert Park circuit. This came after his Aston Martin AMR 22 suffered an engine problem during free practice 1 for the Australian Grand Prix on Friday. In 2022, a Canadian GP was fined €5,172 for an unsafe release. The largest fine was a whopping $25,862.50 suspended fine ahead of the driver's briefing for the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. According to stewards, the Aston Martin driver left without permission after expressing frustration at the meeting. This means that the German, perhaps our favorite one ever, will have to pay a large sum before saying goodbye to the sport. Lastly, let's do a little recap of Sebastian's early career. Vettel began karting when he was just 3 years old and began racing in kart series when he was 8 years old in 1995. He sure did start young. In 1998, he was accepted into the Red Bull Junior team and went on to win several titles, including the Junior Monaco Kart Cup in 2001. In 2003, Vettel was promoted to open-wheel cars and was given the opportunity to test a Reynard Motorsport Champ car in a 2-day private test at the Homestead Road Course by Derek Walker. He won the 2004 Formula BMW ADAC Championship with 18 victories from just 20 races a year later. After all, there's a reason he is known as one of the best drivers of Formula One. Now, let's take a look at some other news that might interest you. First up, Magnussen just made a comeback. Kevin Magnussen has reflected on his return to Formula One, having made a surprise comeback to the paddock with former team Haas for 2022. Magnussen was parachuted back into the Haas squad for the preseason test in Bahrain in March, after missing the first 3 days of preseason running. Since then, he has scored 22 points, 10 more than teammate Mick Schumacher. The driver mentioned how he liked having a life outside Formula One, but when he watched the races, it hurt a little because he knew he wasn't going to do it again. He also mentioned how getting to race in Formula One was a great privilege. Magnussen's dream comeback couldn't have started any better, as he finished 5th in the season's first race. Next on our news radar are the tightening regulations of Formula One. Following an investigation into Alfa Romeo driver Zhu Guanyu's accident at the start of the British Grand Prix, the FIA has made changes to Formula One's roll hoop regulations for 2023. After being hit by George Russell's Mercedes, which was pitched left after hitting Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri, Zhu's car was launched into the air. The Alfa Romeo landed on the track upside down and continued to slide, to the horror of the onlookers. It cleared the tire wall and came to rest between the barrier and the safety fence after being pitched into a roll by the gravel. The roll hoop was destroyed in the crash, but fortunately, Zhu remained unharmed. Following the accident, several changes have been made to the roll hoop, referred to in the regulations as the principal roll structure and associated rules. The FIA World Motorsport Council has approved these. A rounded top is now required for the roll hoop. This is done to lessen the possibility of it digging into the ground, as it did at Silverstone. Lastly, let's have a look at Formula One's Drive It Out campaign. Following recent instances of homophobic and racial harassment of female fans, as well as racist and sexist behavior by spectators, Formula One launched the Drive It Out campaign on Saturday to combat abuse. The sport claimed it was delivering a loud and obvious message that people who spread hate online and at competitions must be excluded. The campaign was introduced in a film that featured all 20 drivers, Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali and FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem. It was particularly sparked by abuse at this month's Austrian Grand Prix. In Austria, where the large majority of the crowd was supporting Red Bull's world champion Max Verstappen, there have been allegations of drunk men harassing female spectators, homophobic slurs, and racist taunts. Lewis Hamilton expressed his disgust and sadness at the behavior at the time that Sebastian Vettel, a 4-time world champion, requested lifetime bans. Since then, Formula One has been in contact with the Grand Prix organizers to ensure that procedures are in place to deal with eventualities. The company might also examine alcohol sales throughout race weekends. And that's a wrap for this video, folks. What do you think of this missed opportunity for Honda? Do let us know. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and we'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!